Well, hey there, true weirdos. How you doing? We got something a little different for you today. We've been spending a lot of time with the CIA looking at an MK Ultra incident that happened in the 50s when one of their own scientists went through a window after being dosed with LSD, and that led us to a story of a little city and little town, really, in France that many people believe the CIA did this whole crazy LSD crop dusting experiment on. And early in True Weird Stuff's history, we did an MK Ultra episode called Tripping Johns, and we refer to it a lot in our episode postmortems because it's a great example of what a cowboy cluster the CIA was during the Cold War. Like they just did as they pleased and no rules, right, Max?
And this story in particular, since this was the first one we did, you've got a guy who's sitting behind a one-way mirror in a brothel that the government it's a government institution. They are dosing the Johns with the hookers, and this guy behind the one-way glass is getting drunk while he's observing this for what purpose exactly? I'm not sure. I can't
Research.
One of the things that's true about all this MK Ultra stuff is there's nothing that's truly scientific about their approach to whatever they're doing.
It feels so haphazard. It feels like, hey, what do you think would happen if? And then they do the thing, and then they see what happens, right? So when we released Tripping Johns, it was early in True Weird Stuff, and we were just putting out stories, and we weren't following them up with our postmortems where we go deeper into the story and we just kind of, talk it through. And we were amazed at how many people were like, can you guys stick around after the story and talk? We're okay. And so that changed the format of the podcast. Trippin' Johns is one of those episodes that doesn't have that. So we thought instead of tacking a postmortem onto it, we would do a live postmortem inside the episode. This should be a cringe fest because like anything you do for us, like anything you do, you hope that you get better in time. And buddy, did we need to get better in time.
And when we started this, we both had sensibilities of where we came from, which is radio, which does not have the kinds of pauses and transitions. And in fact, the way the music is mixed on this is more like for radio than it would be for the way the podcast is done now. Anyhow,
I'm glad you make that point because I had an epiphany, revelation, if you will, the other day. When we first started True Weird Stuff, we brought radio to the podcast, but over time, our radio show now sounds more like True Weird Stuff than a radio show.
Probably, yeah, I would say.
And you know what? Listen, people, we ain't getting paid for any of it. So we're just going to do what we're going to do because there's nobody going, do it differently or you don't get a paycheck. So here we go. While we give everybody on the True Weird Stuff team a week to catch their breaths and get caught back.
Oh, and we lost Sherry. Good Lord. Well, to let you know, this is something that we deal with a little behind the scenes. This is something we deal with, technical problems, because sometimes we just lose people in the middle of while we're talking from each of our own little home studios.
Where did you lose me?
So I was explaining what happened. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? So now she can't hear me. I'm going to leave all this in because this is now what I'm going to do is I'm going to voice text Sherry. Sherry, can you not hear me? ? I'm leaving all this in because this is the kind of technical stuff we have to deal with! ! Anyhow,
where did you lose me?
Well, you were sort of explaining how all this worked, and I'm telling them this is what we deal with.
Leave it all in.
I'm leaving it all. I'm going to leave it all in. And in fact, we're at a point now where we will actually start the episode. We will start the episode, and then we will have some commentary during the episode, right?
Yeah, that's the plan. And listen up, this technical stuff we're having, this ain't my internet provider. This is the Central Intelligence Agency interfering with this transmission.
We believe that, yes.
That's what we think.
So we will start the episode momentarily. So here it is.
Here we
This
go.
is Midnight Climax Tripping Johns from our first few episodes of doing the True Weird Stuff podcast.
The Room is something out of a Hollywood set designer's fantasy of what a big city brothel might look like. Plush red fabric draping the windows, silky sheets pooling on the bed, provocative French art on the walls, and a large ornate mirror positioned to take it all in. There's something a little funny about that mirror, though. Something about the room itself that just feels off. What is this place? And why does it feel like we're being watched? We're being watched.
And make out a small beam of light against the mirror.
Well, this is a punishment already.
Tell me. I was sitting. It is, yes.
True weird stuff.
Even the truest, most patriotic patriot who absolutely loves this country can admit that, yeah, actually, there's a whole wagon train of weird lurking around the edges of the American story. Time, though, has done its job of buffing and polishing the facts, scraping away at details that are trivial and lurid. This is the romantic business of nation building. You know the story. Thrifty Puritans, scrappy colonists, bold tycoons of industry, serious-minded scientists, and inscrutable government agents.
I wouldn't have picked this music this time.
The same altar. Truth, justice, and the American way. But along the way to the American way, corners definitely got cut. That's just how the world works, right? We all know it. And if the ends justify the means, well, we usually manage to find a way to be okay with it. Deception in the service of democracy can be a noble thing, and fellatio for the cause of freedom. Wait, what? Fellatio? Freedom? What are we talking about? We're talking about a little government program called Operation Midnight Climax. Yeah, okay, let's pause here and let me own my full agenda. I am one of those people who loves America and thinks she could be a lot better. This girl is a mess. And she's been lying and keeping secrets and getting up to all kinds of harm. And we all know what she's capable of on the good side, but she needs to be taken to task for her many, many sins. And that's kind of a running theme in this podcast. That, you know, my disappointment in how jacked up and deceptive and frankly batshit some of our government agencies are. They just run amok, do they not? And this story is an example of that.
Yeah, there wasn't any government oversight for with the financing of this particular program. And I think I hear myself going, or something in the background. This was before we stopped me talking when you were doing the narration, I think.
We only stopped that because it was so unfair to Max. I'd spend 20 hours in some rabbit hole writing this, and he'd be hearing it for the first time, and there'd be a test. Like that just wasn't
and this is
right.
before we started using actors' voices in it too. All right.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Just like it sounds. It all went down, so to speak, over about a decade during the Cold War, that 40-plus year-long era of geopolitical jockeying between the USA and the Soviet Union. They called it a Cold War because there was no direct conflict between the two superpowers. It was a battle of ideologies framed by the very real risk of global nuclear annihilation. Exactly the sort of circumstances that breed mass paranoia and also apparently some absolutely demented spycraft. So, have you heard of something called MK Ultra? How about you, Max?
No,
have you ever heard of MK Ultra? Oh my gosh, this is going to be your new favorite thing. MK Ultra is a famous...
And let's pause here and say it is his new favorite thing. So if I could predict lottery numbers as much as I can predict quirky conspiracy rabbit holes for you, we would be so rich. So that's an example of
like Max has spent his life, pursuing other microfixations, like serial
killers, yes.
And so here I am in front of God and everybody. Max, what do you know about MK Ultra? Well, I don't know anything yet, Sherry. Oh, okay. Let's not do that again. All right, go ahead.
It's an infamous CIA program that explored potential techniques for mind control. Brainwashing, hypnosis, mind-altering chemicals, that sort of thing. MK Ultra was in operation for 20 years, partnering with universities, prisons, hospitals, pharmaceutical companies, the U.S. military, all very, very legit, except for one incredibly sticky detail. MK Ultra was basically a giant illegal experiment on human beings. Human beings who didn't know what the CIA was doing to them, and most certainly did not consent to any of it. Oopsies. Now here's a fun fact for you, Max, since you've never heard of MK Ultra.
Okay.
Infamous, legendary Boston gangster Whitey Bulger.
Yeah.
When Whitey Bulger was incarcerated early in his criminal career, he was part of a group of inmates that were in the MK Ultra experimental pools, where they were given incredibly strong mind-altering drugs and experimented on. And Whitey Bulger actually talked about his experiences in the MK Ultra program. And there's the usual cadre of government people that are like, that never happened. The government would never do anything like that. And then there's the rest of us going, oh yeah, the government would never do anything like that. And Operation Midnight Climax, that was part of MK Ultra. And not just in one location. The CIA actually had 3 brothels, all wired for sound and surveillance. There were 2 in California and 1 in New York City. And the man in charge, the man whose very specific vision and
I'll just say that this music bed has shown up on a couple other episodes.
A journalist turned federal narcotics agent named George Hunter White. This dude.
All right, let's pause here. Pause here. Sometimes you look back on your life and you go, what happened to me? I used to be so much better at whatever. This is not that case. I think we improved things. I think we improved the way we tell. I think we improved the way we tell these kinds of stories. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too, and I think that it does help that you write it now, that there are actors that have parts in this sort of thing, and I think that it carries the story very well.
I think the Whitey Bulger, Whitey Bulger pops up a lot in my world because I spend a lot of time in MK Ultra, all the documents that I can lay my hands on and declassified memos and all that. I think the Whitey Bulger story is its own episode, not the Whitey Bulger gangster story, the Whitey Bulger MK Ultra story. Okay, so, and as far as like music beds, well, we have, we don't have access to the world's infinite store of music because things are watermarked and we'll get sued. I mean, we try not to steal from people. Like, we give credit where it's due. We use music that we're licensed to.
Yeah, we have a service that I have music that I have to go through. So anyhow,
we're trying to be very, we may be half-assed, but we're whole ethics around here. Okay, go ahead.
That's because we're afraid of being sued.
This dude was a real character who probably deserves his own movie. He was super good at being a narc, so much so that in the 1930s, he went undercover and infiltrated this powerhouse drug trafficking ring called the Hip Sing Tong. And he remained in the gang for 2 years. He took a blood oath to the Hip Sing Tong and cemented his rep as a guy who could be counted on to keep a secret. And George White was about to keep one of the biggest secrets of all.
And so when I first started doing this, Sherry, I had that sweep went into everything because I didn't know what else to do. So that, and at some point I went, I'm so tired of this thing.
So who the heck is George Hunter White, and why is he designing a sneaky spy brothel for the CIA? And what the heck is the plan for this, right? Well, George White wanted to be an FBI agent, and he applied for the job multiple times. But I'm guessing that the Bureau saw things in him that just didn't fit their ideal of what a G-man looked like. And it was a disappointment for sure for George White, but not a dead end, because George White eventually found his way to something called the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS. This was an intelligence agency that was founded by President Franklin D. Roosevelt in 1941 because he was so exasperated and so pissed off by the chaos and lack of coordination when it came to spy stuff and espionage and information in his very own government and military that he said, bring it all together in one place, by Jove. Call it the OSS and get me that crazy narc George White in here to run it. Or he said something like that because I'm pretty much guessing at what President Roosevelt actually said. Anywho.
Historical fun fact.
Yeah.
Historical fun fact.
What's that?
The OSS is the unit that the famous chef Julia Childs
That's
worked in.
right.
And we have an episode called The Sea Demon about a legendary shark that touches on the work Julia Childs did in the OSS to help the Navy create something that might serve as shark repellent. Because what a lot of people don't know is we lost as many sailors to sharks as we did to enemy combat back in the day. Yeah, so if you've ever heard that Julia Childs was a spy for the United States government, that's true. She worked in the OSS.
Yeah. The famous people worked for the OSS because back then we were fighting the Nazis and we were all in absolute full agreement then that Nazis were 100% bad and must be defeated at all costs. I think we no longer feel that way now, but back then we were unified. We were anti-Nazi. Legendary Hollywood movie director John Ford put in his
today,
time at the OSS, and so did that icon of French cooking, the beloved chef Julia
there
Child.
she is.
And among her many wartime contributions at the OSS,
Here we go.
True story, Julia Child whipped up a recipe for shark repellent for the U.S. Navy. Listen to this. Back then, a surprising number, and I don't know why it never occurred
here
to
we
me to
go.
think about this, or maybe it's never occurred to any of us to think about this.
Maybe it was in this episode,
Back
Max,
then,
and not the
the
Sea
Navy had a
Demon.
real issue
Oh,
with
okay.
sailors serving
Cringe.
Scooby snacks for sharks. It was a significant hazard and a gruesome
Sherry,
hazard.
it's
and Navy
it's
brass
what
was trying to
155
make it
episodes or something?
Oh, who
You
even
know.
can say?
So
I don't
now,
even know where I
they've
am
got
right
this
now.
French chef in the OSS. And Julia
Earth.
Child comes up with a shark repellent. And it was great for shipboard morale.
Unfortunately, yes. I've tried. I stand out in the yard at night with my arms raised to the sky, and they don't come for me.
Issued Julia Child's shark repellent to their Mercury and Gemini astronauts, just in case their capsules managed to re-enter Earth's atmosphere safely and then splash down in shark-infested waters. So
let me just pause here and point out. You think there are grown-ups, but we're the grown-ups, right? So we're like to these astronauts, oh, hey, okay, first you're going to space and good luck with that. And also then you're coming back to Earth and you might become shark food. So put dab this behind your ears, boys, and good luck to you. Like, isn't it crazy how this sounds like a game you and your brother are playing in the backyard?
Right. It
With
does.
astronauts and sharks and everything else. Okay, go ahead.
an alternate.
And we're not even
American
high
history
doing
where
this.
John Glenn got eaten by a great white
Certainly
shark.
not.
I mean, holy cow, total disaster for him, the space program, and humanity itself. Thank you, Julia Child, for your shark repellent. But back to George White, who's also in the OSS, and he's spending his OSS time figuring out ways to sneak truth serum into foods eaten by gangsters, suspected communists, and even the occasional conscientious objector who didn't care for their government's policies and practices and procedures. Truth serum. Does that not sound like a subplot from an Austin Powers
Sure.
movie? But it's
And they were just obsessed with it for decades.
Mhm.
Truth serum.
Oh, yeah.
Operations like right after Roosevelt invented them.
When I was a kid, I thought it was a real thing.
Plain sight.
Yeah, so did
And the
they.
work
Yeah.
that was hidden behind layers and layers of secrecy and obfuscation and mystery. And those secret corners of the OSS where they were monkeying around with stuff like truth serum, that's where the CIA was born. That's where the CIA came from. So how in the world do we get from Franklin Roosevelt to Julia Child to some pimp's fantasy of a sexy boudoir in San Francisco? And why is there a man lurking behind a two-way mirror watching strangers fornicate? And for the love of God, is that a picture of martinis at his side? What is this? This is Operation Midnight Climax. They tucked it under the wing of the newly formed CIA, and they hid it inside the super secretive MK Ultra program. A group of
Music's too loud, sorry.
recruited by George White lured unsuspecting Johns.
Remember when we used to get, remember when people used to be like, the music's too loud. And Max was like, no, it isn't. Get a grip. And now he's like, the music's too loud.
The music's too loud. Well, I was producing for radio. I wasn't producing for this.
And observed how the men behaved while under the influence of both powerful hallucinogens.
There's a couple things at play here that are different now, too. How it's processed, everything.
A little bit extra for their efforts, and promised that George White would.
There is an important nugget of knowledge in this part of the episode. When you understand how the CIA was born, you understand the CIA's mandate. There's an expression. It's an old-fashioned. I think it's British. There's an old-fashioned expression that I love that goes like this: "Begin as you mean to go on." Which means if you want to do a great job, you have to have a great beginning. Begin your relationship with honesty, whatever. Begin as you mean to go on. The CIA began as it meant to go on. The CIA was created as a holding pen for things that were either too sensitive to be known to the public or too distasteful for the government to have its fingerprints on. You following?
Right.
So when the agency itself was birthed from a need to have a place where the unspeakable and unthinkable could be conducted as everyday business, now you understand a little bit better why the CIA has always been such a black box. It was built to be that.
Yeah.
There was never a day where the CIA promised transparency or accountability. And, when it comes to governments and, geopolitics and jockeying for power and position, a lot of really distasteful things are done in the name of that. And they're the kind of distasteful that citizens, taxpayers, and voters don't get on board with. So there has to be a place where that kind of business can be conducted in the dark. And that is the Central Intelligence Agency. All right, go.
From law enforcement. And if it sounds nuts, it's because it was nuts. Along with being highly dangerous and profoundly unethical. People love to get all nostalgic about the golden days of the 1950s, that idyllic chapter in American life when people were decent and hardworking and knew their place. LOL. Like the 50s were ever that pure or innocent. Like any human endeavor is ever that pure or innocent. We just need and want so desperately to believe in our own goodness, to believe in our various lost Edens as a better time just waiting to be recaptured. Remember the sitcom Happy Days? Okay, so that show was set in the years 1955 through 1965. That's when Happy Days took place. While Richie, Potsy, and Ralph Malph were sneaking out at night to watch the Fonz compete in a midnight drag race, the CIA was roofying anyone who served the purpose, from men paying for sex to convicts, soldiers, even their own unsuspecting co-workers. What a time, right? They were literally just slipping LSD into people's drinks at work, at parties, and then watching how they reacted under the influence of the drugs. Now, the goal with the Tripping Johns in George White's sex surveillance setup.
Oh, this music is so loud. I'm so sorry. You're complaining about the writing. I'm complaining about the production. Oh, that's right.
I mean, here you've got to do.
I knew this would be painful.
I know,
and he's tasting colors and seeing music under circumstances that wild. Getting him to spill a few secrets seems reasonably doable. Plus the LSD.
I have to say, pause here. It wasn't a bad theory. In theory, if you've got some foreign agent or government person or whatever, a military commander, and they're tripping, and you've got somebody like unzipping their pants, you might be able to coax some information out of them. I'm not saying the CIA had a bad idea here. That's not. I mean, it did. As it turns out that LSD is the wrong drug for confessions, because people that think that they're transforming into flying dogs are not reliable narrators. So the LSD was the wrong drug, but the idea itself, I mean, it's unethical and illegal and everything, but can you see the merits of the idea?
Yeah, I can see the merits of the idea, but this is the most unscientific way to go about this. All right, back to the cringe fest.
Very purest secret government lab quality. And you also must remember that they had no idea what was happening to them. They went from,
oh my God, you can tell my daddy was a drug dealer because I took a moment to point out how high the quality was of the product.
Grade acid way before Timothy Leary, the 60s, and the coining of the phrase turn on, tune in. And
no one was stepping on the product.
Oh, these were guys who were maybe just on the prowl for, like, I don't know, a hand job, only to watch that hand turn into a spider or a buzzsaw or a rainbow. Who knows what they experienced in that room? It had to be terrifying, at least for some of them, right? And then when they finally came down from the LSD, who could they tell? This was 1955. You're going to go to the police in 1955 and tell them that last night you hired a prostitute, and the next thing you knew, a talking crocodile was asking you to dance, and you can't remember anything else, including the address where all of these crazy things allegedly happened? No way. Those men wouldn't talk, and the people running Operation Midnight Climax knew it. In that room, drugs slam out of their minds. These men were teased, pleasured, manipulated, and interrogated. The work of keeping the world safe from the red menace of communism was a slippery business for sure, and maybe never more literally than in that room on Chestnut Street. And all the while, George White is watching, and taking notes, and pouring himself a fresh martini. You know the expression, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life? Here's a man that clearly lived and breathed that philosophy. George White had this to say about his time in the CIA and Operation Midnight Climax. He said, quote, I toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyards because it was fun. Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, rape, and pillage with the sanction and the blessing of the All-Highest?
So let's pause here and take a moment to celebrate our beloved voice actor and star of the True Weird stable, Mr. Don Morgan.
Yes.
Who narrowly dodged being forced to play this man because we weren't yet writing the show that way.
But we would have. If Sherry has a reprehensible character, we go, who should we get to play this? Well, that'd be Don. Poor Don.
Sometimes I'll be frolicking about in the meadow of human history, and I'll be like, this dickhead. Oh my God, I'm writing this for Don. He's played the worst of the worst. But yes, we would have written this episode so differently. We would have written his story and cast Don to tell it. I think that's another thing. That's another way we improved. We have not, as human beings, Max and I don't feel like we've improved much as humans, but I think we've improved as podcast producers.
We've done a better job of telling how we haven't improved. I'll tell you what, Sherry, let's take a break here.
Okay.
Well, so shall we pick up with where we left off?
This is a delicious kind of pain.
Oh
let's
God,
do
this
it.
is awful.
Suffering. I guess. Okay. Wow. My first take on White was the man had to be a voyeur on some level, if not by nature, then definitely by experience. And remember that George White wasn't just following orders. He designed the setting for the whole experience, down to making all of the decor decisions for his bug brothel on Chestnut Street. It's kind of hard to not look at that whole scenario and not see some very personal preferences at play. Did White unconsciously design the setting based on his own sexual fantasies? Or was he inspired by every single Hollywood whorehouse trope, from the movies to Miss Kitty and Gunsmoke? Or is it possible that humans are actually genuinely hardwired to be aroused by crimson velvet curtains and vaguely raunchy French paintings? It's not my jam, but you do you, Pepe Le Pew. So while our government is dosing unsuspecting men with LSD, and I'm sorry, but that cannot be stated strongly enough, I have to say, because we actually did know better in 1955, and this was some Bond villain level illegal experimentation on human beings. And our government was running creepy wired up brothels and leaning hard on sex workers to do all of their dirty work, literal and otherwise. Did they at least manage to learn anything useful? Anything? Anything at all? And please, I'd also like you to remember that White not only had a dorm fridge and a portable toilet tucked behind his two-way class, he was slurping down pitchers of booze while watching the action. I am begging you, please don't act like my ex-husband would be all argumentative for the sake of being annoying AF and tell me that this was pure science, please. When in the frickety-fracking name of Einstein have you seen science done like this?
Sure, the only thing that I can think is they destroyed a lot of those MK Ultra files, as we've discovered.
Most of them.
Yeah, most of them. Because, and here's the thing. I'm sure that he wasn't behind that glass writing anything down. I just think he was getting drunk and watching what was going on.
And getting off. Yeah, it's hard.
I'm not believing that this was all science.
So this is another example, Max, to your earlier point of we were shackled to our radio backgrounds.
Yeah.
Because I need a picture of martinis. I am so hopped up on this like we're going so fast.
It's going way. Yeah. There's no sense of breathing in it. There's no sense of dramatic pausing. But in our defense, we didn't know what we were doing when we started this, and we sort of learned exponentially. We just went, maybe we should try this, or maybe we should try that.
We for sure learned as we went, but it's interesting. And if you didn't know, if you were listening to this and didn't know that radio was the reason, like in radio, you can't have a pause. You can't have silence. You can't have dead air.
You can't.
And we do the kind of radio we do, it's like lifestyle. It's upbeat. We're like that. There's a really funny Saturday Night Live skit about morning radio. We're not that bad, but from an energy level, that's kind of what's expected of us in our day jobs.
Have some.
You got to be like, yes, oh my God, be caller number 5. And that doesn't really work here. And it took us a hot minute to learn that. Okay.
Maybe the first year.
For God's sake, than the CIA was with Operation Midnight Climax. So what, if anything, did the CIA learn? Here it is. If you want to spill some secrets, you do not need to dose him with acid, tie him to a headboard, and rock every inch of his hallucinating world. He'll tell you whatever you want to know in the post-coital afterglow while y'all share a smoke. For the love of God, my great-grandmother could have saved the feds millions if they'd only asked her. She knew that. The mind boggles. So eventually they shut it all down, and it was a pretty good time for White. While it lasted, the sex workers were making extra cash, and the Tripping Johns were having, an experience unlike any other, right? By 1965, though, the party was officially over for Operation Midnight Climax.
I'd say it's an experience like nothing other. You're going to a brothel, you're hoping to get laid, and instead you're dosed with LSD?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Look, you can tell sometimes in just little throwaway moments in these episodes, like, that we really are a pair of cockeyed optimists who are looking for the silver lining.
We are.
Well, this man was completely psychologically brutalized, but he got himself quite a handy. Like we're over here, like looking for something.
The place that was hiding MK Ultra, that hung on till 1972, at least officially, because there are people out there who believe that MK Ultra never really ended. Of course, there are also people out there who believe that most of Congress is made up of reptilian aliens in skin suits.
Well, we still believe that.
I'm not here to argue with either group because I'm not a masochist.
Well, I am.
And George White, what became of him? Maybe it was all those pictures of martinis, but he died of cirrhosis of the liver 10 years after.
Oh, what a shock.
I know, right?
His widow and third wife eventually took his boxes of papers and files and donated them to Foothills Junior College in California, where the contents, no doubt, had a whole lot of people whispering WTF to themselves. She didn't realize, I guess, what was contained in those boxes of papers. But it didn't take long for the government to catch on, and today George White's documents are archived at Stanford University. Operation Midnight Climax. George White, perched on his portable toilet, behind his two-way mirror, the Tripping Johns. This is straight up Austin Powers territory. It's so very crazy and so very true. It's your tax dollars at work, everybody. WTF.
There was that swooshy thing. Do you hear
Next
it?
time on True Weird Stuff, my entire family lost more than 12 hours.
Max, I'm not sure that I could survive a second round of this.
No.
Let's never do this again.
Please, let's never do this again with any other episode. And to any of you who listened through this, thank you so much for listening to those episodes when we first released them.
We're so sorry. Yeah, trust me, our shame is great and unending.
And hopefully, I think that we've gotten better with it, and I think we're continuing to get better. So,
well, we want to be better, and we're trying to get better. That was pretty painful. Well, I think we've learned, though. And if I'm tempted to tell this story now again differently, to add to our body of MK Ultra episodes. But the other thing was, here's some inside baseball. When we started True Weird Stuff, people were like, a podcast shouldn't be longer than 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And we were like, yeah, no, we're the kind of podcast listeners, we like to go deep. We'll binge. We want to listen to like a whole season. We want to listen to hour after hour of content. So we were like, yeah, no, we can't do it. We don't even want to try to do a 5 minute. What can you accomplish in 5 minutes? Then it was, you don't need to have so much detail in your stories. Well, that's my hyperfixation. Yes, I do. I do need to have that much detail.
I think the first episode where we sort of hit it a little bit was the Bloody Benders. And you wrote it. So this was about a family that were killing people in, I don't know, the Midwest, Kansas, in the Midwest. People would come. They were sort of a family of serial killers. And you wrote it, this is what it would be like if you were about ready to be killed by them, and went through the explanation of all that. And I think that was when we started to realize that, we might be able to tell the story in different ways.
And I just reject, to me, when someone tells me a story and there's no context, it leaves me with more questions than answers. Yeah, but then why did he do that? Well, why was he chosen for that job? Well, why did that person not confess? And so it's all the little details that are on kind of the outside of the story that tell it for me. And when I think about, we did an episode on Elmer McCurdy. That episode's called A Real Stiff. There's a Broadway show based on the guy called Dead Outlaw now. Mm-hmm. When we did that episode, one of the best details in that was not central to the story, but it ended up being our favorite thing. And I can't imagine leaving it out. And that is the Undertaker's kids used to take Elmer McCurdy's heavily embalmed body, put roller skates on the feet, and push him up and down the sidewalks of town for fun. You didn't need to know that to know Elmer McCurdy's story, but that is the exact kind of detail that is like time travel. Suddenly you're sucked back to a time and place. There's no TV, there's no radio, there are no phones, there are no playgrounds. These kids, when they're not at school or doing chores, have got to amuse themselves somehow.
Right.
And this town looked the other way while children played with a corpse. To me, that's a detail worth having in a story. So
that's one of my favorite stories.
Oh, I love Elmer McCurdy. So we have tried to be better. And you know what we have to look forward to, Max? Just think, at some point, we'll listen to episodes we're making right now that we feel much better about.
Yeah.
And those will make us cringe and throw up.
They probably will.
So there's always that. Y'all, thank you, Tweirdos, for listening to this show, even when it's unbearable, which
And thanks to whoever named the people that listen Tweirdos. We were calling them True Weirdos, and then I think it was one of the listeners to this podcast that came up with the Tweirdo thing.
Yeah. They said, nah, we're Tweirdos. You're very patient, Tweirdos.
You are.
So,
You really are.
let me apologize for how terrible things are.
And
we're trying to improve.
And thank you for listening. And based on recent episodes, but not the one we just talked about, be sure to rate and review wherever you get your podcast, because it helps us with getting discovered. Just a few minutes to do that. It really does help us.
Try to rate and review a more current episode, though.
Yeah, not this one where you go, oh my God, what terrible production.
I'll stick a pin in it because although we told the Operation Midnight Climax story, there's more to it.
Oh,
there's more to William. There's more to him. Because remember, he was a journalist that got tapped. See, that was the other thing about the CIA in its early days, and especially in the Cold War MK Ultra days. They, now, like, someone who works on this show may have relatives who worked for the Central Intelligence Agency in some capacity. And they recruit on college campuses. And, it's a pretty specific skill set that pulls you into the CIA's orbit. But back in those early days, you remember when we did the episode on how magic mushrooms entered recreational drug culture? The CIA was in that one too. And they were like, who do we know? Who is adjacent to this mushroom guy? Let's recruit that person and turn them into a CIA agent. Like a lot of the folks who worked on these MK Ultra programs weren't, government or espionage or top secret folks. They were somebody that could get the CIA closer to something they wanted. And so when you recruit like that, when you bring in a journalist and tell him to run Operation Midnight Climax, you're not dealing with, like a former lieutenant in the United States Navy. You're dealing with a guy who is going to piss into a bucket and drink martinis and watch people have sex, which is what happened. So that's the other cool thing, interesting little fun thing about that era in the CIA. Because people hear these stories today with 20, 26 years and go, well, how could that person even get hired? Well, it was a different time.
It was.
Y'all, thank you. Thank you so much. We will endeavor to improve.
We do.
Appreciate your listening. We'll see you on the next episode of True Weird Stuff.
And if you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, hit the plus button in the top right corner, and now it helps an independent podcast like ours to get discovered. And we really appreciate it if you subscribe, rate, and review True Weird Stuff.
Hit our website, trueweirdstuff.com, for show notes and photos and videos when we have it, and bonus content. Everything True Weird is waiting for you at trueweirdstuff.com.
And follow True Weird Stuff on Instagram.
True Weird Stuff is a Now Media production. Our executive producer is Anthony Garcia. The show is written and hosted by me, Sherry Lynch, along with my deeply weird director, Max Sweeten. Our equally odd producer is Carrie Bowser. Additional production by the mysterious Stephen Call. Our digital witch and social media cult leader is Heather Furr. Original graphics by Kevin Nash. Original artworks by Olivia Axlin. True Weird original music composed and performed by Jack Griffin and Zane Nash.
Copyright 2026, Now Media.
All rights reserved, all wrongs remembered.